Oh, hello again. It is the Conspicuous Moo, and I apologise in advance for the length of this one, but going through all 12 Soulbinds did take a little bit of time, so I will break it all up as timestamps in the description below, and we'll just, for the general structure of this video, we'll probably start with just going over the conduits for Brewmaster as they currently stand, which ones I recommend that you should be looking out for, and the kind of priorities that you need for those, and then we'll just go into the Soulbinds proper, have a bit of a play around. Now all of these Soulbinds are available to play around with on Wowhead, so I'll leave a link down below as well for those, and yeah, let's get cracking. So we'll start with the conduits. For those of you who aren't aware how they work, there are three different types of conduits: potency, which are more offensive-minded; endurance, which are more defensive-minded; and then finesse, which are utility-minded. So we've had our Brewmaster conduits in place for some time now, so we're generally getting an idea about which ones are really good and which ones really aren't. So we'll start with the choices here. Now obviously Scalding Brew at the moment for some reason still hasn't been nerfed, so it's still an amazingly strong ability. Cake Smash is going to be used a lot in your rotation, so it's absolutely like your first choice for Potency Conduit right now. As for the actual Covenant abilities, which are Potency Conduits, there really is no reason not to take them at the moment. Things like Imbued Reflections, which is up to 50% additional damage on the Fallen Order Monks, is really potent. I mean, as in terms of a damage cooldown, the Venthyr ability at the moment is really strong. Bone Dust Brew from the Necrolord Conduit is pretty much the front runner at the moment, not only for just general defensive utility for Brewmasters, but it got buffed recently, and it's also pretty good for all three specs. So if you want to do a sideline into Mistweaving, or I keep forgetting, Windwalking, then the abilities that are adjusted slightly for those two specs are also rather good. So if you want an all-round Covenant at the moment, it looks like Necrolord is a little ahead. Kyrian is still really good. The Mastery bonus at the moment is what is being affected, and we're not entirely sure how Mastery is going to shake out at the moment, because we're still waiting for news whether or not the removal of the elusive Brawler stack from the Blackout kick is actually a thing yet. But you can increase the Mastery bonus with this conduit as well, so it is more defensive power, and of course Weapons of Order itself is really good for getting a threat head start and just doing more damage for yourself as a Brewmaster. Night Fae seems to be falling behind at the moment, which is a bit of a pity because it's still my favourite. But Way of the Fae is still a very obvious conduit to take. So yeah, at the moment I would really like Night Fae to be a little bit more attractive. Its main problem at the moment on beta is that the stomp itself is appearing 5 yards in front of you. Now I'm sure that's a bug. I'm sure it has to be a bug. I mean, as many excellent Brewmasters have already pointed out, it's a stomp, so unless you have shoes that are 5 feet long, it shouldn't be appearing that far in front of you. So I'm hoping that they're going to fix it, because if that is working as intended, then it's not going to be used all that much, which would be a real pity. Okay, so for the general endurance conduits, at the moment, there really is only one viable option, which is Harm Denial. Now, I wasn't particularly complimentary about Harm Denial before, but I have had my mind changed by people who are prepared to go and do the complicated mathematics involved. And of the three generals there, yeah, Harm Denial is the choice. It would still be your second choice endurance conduit, There's an ability for Brewmasters which is an obvious first choice, which we'll go on to now. Evasive Stride is still your number one pick, in my personal opinion, for an endurance conduit. Even though it's been massively changed. It used to just be a flat 5% additional shuffle, but it's now it now has a chance to heal you instead of dealing damage when you're in heavy stagger. So that does mean that you're going to have to be doing fairly challenging content in order to get the most out of this conduit, because you're going to need to be in red stagger quite a lot. Stagger ticks go for 0.5 seconds. 0.5 seconds, yes, that's right. Each tick is half a second, basically, so every one of those ticks while you're in red stagger has a 2% chance, initially up to 5% with a maxed out conduit. Apparently on the beta at the moment they've got the numbers backwards when they implemented this, so instead of a 2% chance it's a 98% chance, which means there's a whole bunch of Brewmasters running around at the moment who are pretty much immortal, because every time they go into red stagger they're getting that healed and they're not taking that stagger damage either. The finesse conduits are okay. There's none that really, I mean, the only one that really stands out to me is swift transference, because I do like to move around a lot. The basic design of dizzying tumble, dealing that much less damage for 5 seconds if 3 of those seconds is them being stunned, and of course they're not dealing any damage at all anyway. So we're not sure if that's just a wording thing, but at the moment it doesn't seem like a particularly valuable one. Lingering Numbness is definitely a PvP conduit, so it doesn't really apply to PvE Brewmasters all that much. Swift Transference is nice, and Tumbling Technique as well. But generally speaking, if you can, it's probably best to avoid the finesse ones altogether and go for either your potency or your endurance ones instead. And I'll bring up a summary of what I mean. So yeah, I mean basically the aim is for Scalding Brew first, and then whatever your Covenant ability is as well. All of them are pretty good, and they're going to be, we're actually quite lucky as Brewmasters at the moment, because all 4 Covenants have their own particular niche that's particularly strong. So yeah, it's not as if there are plenty of other specs of Monk that don't have 4 choices that are actually viable at the moment. Then I would go, if you have any endurance, go for Evasive Stride first, and then Harm Denial as well. You can invert those if you're going to be doing completely non-challenging content. If you're just questing on world questing, you'll probably get more out of Harm Denial than Evasive Stride. But as we're starting out and we're going into tanking dungeons and things, I think Evasive Stride will probably have a lot more use. And as for the finesse conduits, like I said, try to avoid them, but if you can't, maybe Swift Transference or the Blackout Kick one, but generally try not to get them. Okay, so all of these things are available on the Wowhead site as well, the Soulbind calculator, so you can have a play around with them. So we're starting here with Pelagos, who's supposed to be quite strong for the Kyrians, and Let Go of the Past. Now basically, using any abilities will increase your versatility by 1% for 10 seconds, stacks up to 5%, so as long as you're staying busy, then that's actually quite a useful ability for tank in particular, increasing your healing, your damage, and about 2.5% versatility for damage reduction as well, so rather useful. So the lightning bolts are finesse conduits, so we'll try and avoid those if we possibly can. Then the shields are endurance, and the cross swords are your potency. But as you can see, they kind of tie in to specific abilities. So I've got File of Patience, Rose of Trials, and Focusing Mantra. For this one I would probably go with a potency, and obviously I'll be picking Scalding Brew, which will open up Focusing Mantra. Now with the endurance conduits, this is the only ones you can choose. You probably go Evasive Stride there. You have a choice between Bond of Friendship. Defeating an enemy reduces the cooldown on your steward's non-file services by 1 second, or Cleansed Vestments. Now this is really up to you in terms of, you know, if you are a tailor or an enchanter, then this is an excellent one to pick. If you just want to acquire additional mats so you can sell them early on, that's also a pretty good idea. Otherwise you'd probably go with Bond of Friendship. So, but we'll take the vestments now for... Now we're going to here, because we're taking the Kyrian one at the moment, it would be... Where are you? Strike with Clarity. There we are. So mastery bonus increased by 5%, and now you have a choice of a finesse or a potency. Difficult to pick a third potency. Goodness, what would you do? I mean, walk with the ox is probably not worth taking. Yeah, that would be a bit of a problem. You may even actually have to go for a finesse one here. Ugh. Fine. I'll just quickly refill this in. Strike with Clarity. Of the finesses, I'll probably Tumbling Technique, which is the 5% chance to grant a charge of roll, a little bit of extra, and then Combat Meditation. So activating your Kyrian class ability increases your mastery by 5% for 20 seconds. And if you walk through these sorrowful memories, it will extend the effect of that mastery bonus. You'll get that at Renown level 39, which is, people are guesstimating at about 4 months into the expansion, as long as you're consistently doing all of the things. Clear? Clear! It starts with 2, so Ascendant File, File of Serenity, which is your steward ability. With the Kyrians, will render you immune to curse, disease, poison and bleed effects for 15 seconds. The File of Serenity, just while we're talking about it, is being touted as relatively useful. It's been changed to a 3-minute cooldown, but can only be used once during encounters, such as raid encounters. It will cleanse you of all negative effects, but particularly the bleeds, which is not a particularly strong... We don't have a very strong way of dealing with it, basically. An oddity with bleeds is that you think it would be a physical ability, but it's actually classified as magical because it ignores armor. And when you have a dot on top of a dot, and we don't stagger that much magic damage anyway, it's problematic for us. You know, if you get a double dot, all of a sudden your healers notice you're going down faster than usual. Hopefully your healers notice in time. So having the file there and removing it is definitely a good thing. Mentorship, while above 90% health, you increase nearby party members' maximum health by 5%. So yeah, it's more of a, this is a group, this is a personal choice. I'd probably go with this one. That does leave you open though to a finesse conduit. Actually, let's not do that then. And this is one of the problems I have with the soulbind system, is that, you know, sometimes you have to choose things that you don't really want to take just because the conduits are linked to them. If we had to take mentorship then, and with potency, you'd always start with Scalding Brew, and then we'd go through and we'd get Strike with Clarity. Resonant Accolades, while receiving a healing while above 70% health, or healing an ally that's above 70% health, 3% of the healing is repeated on the target over 5 seconds. Yeah, no. Bearer's Pursuit looks quite useful for tanking purposes, and it is directly linked to an endurance conduit, so that would be rather nice. Ooh, Point of Courage. We do like critical strike in general, so it's tricky. Tricky dicky. Fortunately, it points to a finesse, and I want 2 endurance conduits, and I can see that pathway, so I'll probably take Bearer's Pursuit, even though that crit would be really, really nice. So, Evasive Stride, and then you can also have Harm Denial here as well. Cleansing Rites, after 5 seconds out of combat, gain a shield for 10% of your maximum health. Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. Ever Forward. Yes, while above 90% health, your mounted movement speed is increased by 10%. Yes, please. Thank you very much. And the final one, Renown 39, is Valiant Strikes. You and your nearby allies' critical strikes grant you stacks of Valiant Strikes up to 40. And 40 stacks you heal yourself for 10% of your maximum health, and up to 4 nearby allies for 5% of their maximum health over 10 seconds. Meh is my first reaction to that. And Owlboy. Hello, Owlboy. Okay, so we start with Charged Additive. File of Serenity also knocks nearby enemies away from you. Good, going to be useful. Or Forge Light Filter, when reduced below 35%, your File of Serenity automatically heals you and consumes a charge. Because, once again, got a finesse, we'd probably go with this one. Scalding Brew, which is, seems to know what I want to do now, so we'll put Evasive Stride in as well. Now, with these choices, Hammer of Genesis, damaging a new enemy grants you 2% haste. Yep. When reduced below 35% health, you stun nearby enemies for 3 seconds. On enemies that can be stunned, anyway. After 5 seconds of standing still, incoming stun and incapacitate durations are reduced by 20%. The thing is, if there's one thing monks are not known for, it's standing still. So I'm not really sure that would be a good idea. I'd have to take Hammer of Genesis, and I don't really want to, but at least that way I can get Harm Denial. And then I can get the second potency Conduit, Strike with Clarity. Regenerating Materials, Casting Opportunity, has a chance to improve the remaining durability on your armor. Yes, I do like that. Okay, this is definitely designed for someone like me. Fall damage decreased by 20%, and after falling, damage you take is reduced by 20% for 30 seconds. Is that all damage? Or just fall damage? I don't know, I think I would have to take Resilient Plumage just because I fall off everything. And then Bronze Call to Action. After using 120 spells and abilities, your next spell or ability summons Bron, who attacks and heals your targets for 30 seconds. Well, that's nice, isn't it? So there you go. That's typically how I would run through that. I'm focusing on the potency and the endurance conduits for the most part. Of those three, I would probably pick Pelagos for that. Necrolord. Now, Necrolord is trying really, really hard to excite me and pull me away from my true choice, which is, of course, Night Fae. So we'll start with Plague Deviser Marileth, who looks appalling. We open with Volatile Solvent. Using Fleshcraft, which is the Necrolord ability, derives a benefit from a corpse, differing based on the creature's type. So, Fleshcraft, for those of you who don't know, is a 2-minute cooldown. It creates a shield around you. It is a channeled ability, which is a bit of a pain because that means you have no avoidance or mitigation up. Though with certain soulbind choices you can increase the damage and the healing of it. Well, you have to start with Volatile Solvents, so we'll get that underway. Now we've got an interesting thing here. We've got Endurance and a Potency, which will both be rather nice. So we get to choose which bloop we go with. So Bloop's Wanderlust will increase your movement speed by 10% for 2 minutes while standing still. Once again, the standing still thing is not... I don't stand still. So, well, not a lot anyway. When reduced below 50% health, Ooze courses over you, granting you a shield for 10% of your maximum health for 20 seconds. That's probably more useful. That is a DPS ability, though it would be kind of nice as a Brewmaster because damage is not one of our strong points at the moment. However, Finesse Conduit, can't do that. So I'd probably take the middle one here. A bit of Scalding Brew, lovely, lovely, and then we'll have the Frictionless Coating, thank you. I'm sure we'll need the shield. So we immediately get trapped into a Finesse Conduit, which is a really, really popular choice. For now I'll take the Tumbling Technique again. So, more oozes. Kevin's Keyring allows opening of locks that require up to 60 skill once every 24 hours. Okay, that's kind of nice. Yeah, each 1 second spent channeling Fleshcraft reduces Kevin's Keyring. You don't have to rely on your rogues anymore. The other one, Plague-born Cleansing Slime. Defeating enemies has a chance to deploy your Plague-born Cleansing Slime. Well, improves the remaining durability on your armor. That's a fairly easy choice. Potency 2, in this case, will be, there it is, Bone Marrow Hops. This at the moment is looking really strong. And nerfs are expected for Bone Marrow Hops because the original setting now for Bone Dust Brew is 35%, and this will increase it by 25%, so there'll be an awful lot of damage and healing going out. So it's very, very strong at the moment, which is exciting, but at the same time we don't expect it to last, and you know, we are getting additional changes next week, so that's probably going to be one of them. We don't really have much of a viable third potency conduit at the moment, so I would probably just go with Harm Denial here. Harm Denial, and Ultimate Form. So this is at the end of your long renown grind. While channeling Fleshcraft, you are immune to crowd control. Finishing the full channel grants you another 4 seconds of crowd control immunity. Yeah, it's okay, I guess. I mean, immune to crowd control is nice. But yeah, I mean, a lot of Tank Talk is about Fleshcraft and how you can't defend yourself in any way while you're channeling it. And they seem to be moving away from that in general. We had the Spinning Crane Kick change recently where they took away the ability to dodge and parry while channeling Spinning Crane Kick, so that seems to be something that they're not keen on right now, at least for monks. Emily, I've heard many things about you, Emily, so we'll see how we go. So, we start with 2 crowns. Magnificent Skin increases your maximum health by 5% for 30 seconds every time you use your Necrolord class ability. Well, that should be fairly easy to do, seeing as Bone Dust Brew is, I think, a 10-second cooldown. Or you may channel Fleshcraft while moving. Well, the way that it's being used at the moment, you really would pick that. Even, you know, with the finesse there, but I mean, if you have to stand still with Fleshcraft, it diminishes its potential by a substantial degree. Because imagine you're there channeling all this damage and the guy's like slightly out of your range, standing there going, what are you doing? So yes, that'll definitely have to... We'll pick Evasive Stride, obviously, and Scalding Brew again. Now, give me some interesting choices. Cartilaginous Legs. After taking falling damage, the health loss becomes a shield, lasting for 30 seconds. Well, it will be a big shield in my case. Or you may attune your Hearth Kidney Stone to any resting location and return to it. 24-hour cooldown, reduced by 5 minutes for every killing blow. It's falling again, I'm sorry, I'm so clumsy in game. Bone Marrow Hops, obviously. Now, once again, I wish they'd just remove finesse conduits, they're all rubbish. Thankfully, their option, Sulfuric Emission, when reduced below 20% health, you fear nearby enemies for 3 seconds. Yeah, I could see that turning into a mess. Imagine, you know, you've already got a whole pack of mobs on you, you're getting low, you get below 20%, you fear all of these mobs in different directions, who then pull additional mobs, it's just encouraging another wipe. Gnashing Chompers, gain 1% haste for 20 seconds after defeating an enemy up to 5%. Haste. Movement speed increased by 2% for every nearby enemy up to 10%, so that's nice. Don't know why your toes have to be gristled though, look after them properly. That would be a third potency conduit though. So I'll have to take Gnashing Chompers, but under protest, of course. And finally, Embody the Construct. So after using 60 spells or abilities, your next Fleshcraft will deal shadow damage to up to 5 nearby enemies over the duration, and heal up to 5 nearby allies for that duration as well. This ties in very well with the Ambulatory Flesh at the top, where you can channel Fleshcraft while moving. So you can imagine, you know, between pulls, you could channel Fleshcraft or move across. You'd be healing people as you go, and you'll also be dealing damage to the next pack before you chuck in a Keg Smash. So that's why a lot of people are quite keen on Emily at the moment. And to be honest, so am I, even though he's an odd-looking angry person. Finally, a Bonesmith Hieromir. Sounds like a Vrykul, doesn't it? Anyway, opening salvo. Serrated Spaulders. Inflict shadow damage to your attackers over 5 seconds when hit at melee range. Well, we're probably going to be hit at melee range a bit, so additional damage is always welcome. Or Resourceful Fleshcrafting. Defeating an enemy reduces Fleshcraft's cooldown by 1 second. And just looking at the pathway, sort of going, I want to make sure I get the ones that I want. Let me just check the other abilities a little further down first, because if they're good. Gore Stompers. Can't see 25. Okay, so that's increased movement speed. Oh, okay. Alright, it will go endurance then. But you see how it's not about the actual passive abilities in the tree, it's whether or not you get all the conduits you need in order to cross over the line. Anyway, we'll take the Serrated Spaulders because additional damage is always welcome. Additional damage is additional threat, as we know. So Evasive Stride, lovely. And then Bone Marrow Hops or Scalding Brew. Doesn't really matter. No, it doesn't. Okay, Evasive Stride, and Bone Marrow Hops. Now, I would love to take this. Defeating an enemy restores 1% of your maximum health after 3 seconds, stacks to 5, but once again it's a finesse conduit. Okay, so Marrow Gemstone, after landing 10 critical strikes you gain 20% increased chance to critical strike. Wouldn't that just continue forever then? Goodness. Oh, Mayonuka once per 60 seconds, right. Exponential crit. Just... I had to go with Gore Stompers though because I want the second potency conduit. So, yeah, I mean, increased movement speed, we love to move. We love to move, so we'll take those. We'll get the second one, which will be Scalding Brew. And we'll get our second endurance, which will be Harm Denial. And now we have a choice between Runeforged Spurs. Mounted movement speed is increased by 5%, and if you're attacked, your mounted speed is increased by an additional 10% for 5 seconds. So it's like, yeah, well, that's faster. Or, and it mentions or, you have a chance to obtain a satchel of the Bonesmith's preferred ore and gems when you kill an enemy that yields experience or honor. So, if you're a miner, as I will be, because engineering is the best profession ever, yeah, I'll take the satchel. And finally, the Forgeborn Reveries. Upon death, your armor continues to fight. This is cute. Allowing you to fight for an additional 10 seconds. During this time, your damage and healing down is reduced by 50%, and you cannot receive healing. I guess the first circumstance I'm thinking of here is, the boss is at 1%. You've just died. Those additional 10 seconds, even 50% less damage, might just get you over the line. I'm not sure if you'd have any threat left. Does your armor have any threat? But, it's kind of interesting. I'd still go with Emily though, I think, for Soulbind Calculator. Yeah, I think I'd go with Emily. So, moving on to Night Fae, who are my people. As you're probably aware, I'm sort of having a bit of a difficulty choosing between what my heart tells me, which is Night Fae, and what my head tells me, which is Necrolord. But at the moment, Night Fae is still ahead. We'll start with Nia, who's had some changes recently, which apparently have made Night Fae in general a little less attractive. So run without tiring. While in soul shape, you regenerate 5% of your maximum health every 3 seconds. Definitely, that's definitely quite a positive start. And you really have a choice because you've got potency and you've got endurance there as well. Stay on the move. Soul Shape's cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds, and defeating an enemy reduces Soul Shape's cooldown by 1 second. So they're both pretty good. I'm just having a look at the pathway, thinking how many we're actually going to use when you use. I don't think so. Okay, so, I'll probably go potency for this one. So start with Scalding Brew. Fortunately, you are forced into a finesse conduit, which is less than ideal. you see we're already missing Evasive Stride, so we need to, the only way that we can get that now is to go down here. Because I think you really will need Evasive Stride. This does mean that in this particular Soulbind you won't be able to access Harm Denial unless you go over here, but then you'd have to, yeah, you would potentially lose another potency conduit as well, which you can't really afford to do either. So not my favourite Soulbind at the moment, but anyway, so you choose Way of the Fae here. Nature's Splendor, have a chance to obtain leather, meat and fish when you kill an enemy that yields experience or honour. Yes. Well, you know, if you're cooking, and you know, the more raw mats at the start of an expansion, the better. Though that is at Renown level 31, so you could be 3 months into Shadowlands by then. Or Swift Patrol, movement speed increased by 20% for 2 minutes after defeating an enemy. Combat cancels this effect. Personally, a Swift Patrol makes obvious sense for a monk, so pick that. Growth Invigoration, approximately 2.5 procs per minute. Healing or dealing damage has a chance to grant you a stack of redirected anima up to 10. Activating your Night Fae class ability grants you 1% maximum health and 2% increased mastery per stack for 30 seconds. This was the one that was changed, and of course requires Renown 39. So overall, this is not a favourite of mine. Having to take Nia's Tools Burrs, which, you know, does a little bit of damage and then also slows them down by 20%. We're already doing that with Cake Smash, the slow, and the damage isn't really significant enough. And having to take a Finesse Conduit, it's not a favourite of mine. Let's just put it that way. Dreamweaver is, I think, where I'm going to be going with mine. So we start with Field of Blossoms. Activating your Night Fae class ability puts flowers at your feet. Cute. For 15 seconds, that increase your haste by 5% while you stand on them. Not particularly useful. Haste and standing still, two things that Brewmasters are not overly fond of. So you take Scalding Brew there anyway, just because potency. Scalding Brew, thank you very much, and Evasive Stride would be your first choice for Endurance. Now, once again, you're kind of steamrolled, because you want ideally the 2 Endurance and the 2 Potency Conduits. So the only way you can really do that realistically is to go with Social Butterfly, which is cute anyway. When at least 2 allies are within 8 yards, your versatility increases by 5% for 5 seconds. And then other people get the bonus, and then you get the bonus back. Versatility is always useful for us, but you know, you have Soothing Voice, so that's a very PvP ability, and links to a 3rd Potency Conduit, which we don't really have. Well, we have, but they're not very good. And then 10% of your overhealing received or done. Once again, we don't have a lot of healing to start with. It links to a Finesse Conduit, so you take Social Butterfly. Get the second one, Harm Denial, which is always useful. Way of the Fae, and for me, I mean, Somnambulist has been changed as well. It was you get increased gold from World Quests, and they've now changed it to, you know, 20% increased movement speed for 30 minutes after spending 60 seconds in a rested area, which is kind of nice. But I fall a lot, so Fairy Dust is going to be my choice. Because when falling further than 20 yards, I mean, I'll have my gliders anyway, but anything that prevents me from taking additional fall damage is excellent, so I'll have that one. Pod Tender, when you take damage that would kill you, instead rejuvenate with a Wild Seed, regaining 30% of your hit points over 10 seconds. Hit points, health points, hit points. If the Wild Seed takes more than that damage, you will die. This effect can only occur once every 30 minutes, so try not to die. But you can see it ticks all of my boxes, because, you know, even though that's unremarkable, I can get pretty much everything I want. Increased fall damage, in the works. So Dreamweaver has been a first choice for me since the beginning, and it continues to be in front now. One thing that I forgot to mention, the top Soulbind you get pretty much as you start. You get the second one a little bit along the way, and then the last one, the bottom one, comes in a lot later. So I think the first abilities are unlocked around about renown level 27. That could be a couple of months in to Shadowlands before you can working on them. But you know, maybe you just need to complete the Night Fae campaign, so we'll have to find out how that's staggered. But you can't just choose your Soulbind and go. They've actually designed it this way. As you start with Neo, then Dreamweaver, then Kyrian. Talking of Kyrian, Horn of the Wild Hunt. Soul Shape increases the movement speed of allies within 40 yards by 10%. Very nice. Wild Hunt's charge while out of combat. Your Soul Shape's teleport becomes a charge, stunning your target for 5 seconds and ending your Soul Shape. That's fun. It's tied to a finesse conduit. So you'd have to take Horn of the Wild Hunt, because once again you've got to go this way. This is the only way you can go to get everything that you want, which is good design. So Scalding Brew, that's nice and easy. Evasive Stride, obviously. So face your foes when in front of the target. Your spells and abilities decrease the damage they inflict on you by 2% for 2 seconds. Sounds great, but if you take it, then you now have a third potency conduit. First strike damaging an enemy before they damage you increases your chance to critical strike by 10% for 10 seconds. That's actually quite nice. So I kind of like that. Hold the line. After standing still for 5 seconds, you take 10% less physical damage until you move. Yeah, once again, these are all pretty good. I mean, I have to take first strike because I have to. I don't have to, but you know, it makes the most sense. Choosing Way of the Fae, so I now have all the conduits that I want. Vorkai Sharpening Techniques, your weapon takes no durability damage, definitely a plus, and that's going to save you an awful lot of gold over the course of the expansion. But Get in Formation, that would be rather good for group content as well. Your mounted movement speed is increased by 3%. Allies behind you within 40 yards gain this benefit. And it'd only need to be one of you there. I think I'll probably take the weapons though. Wild Hunt Tactics is the final one for renown level 39. Your damage to targets above 75% health and healing to targets below 35%, so it's increased by 10%. And you get increased movement speed for 5 seconds. So still of the three, Dreamweaver's the obvious one for me here. But yeah, I mean, it's quite an interest. It's got some nice little touches in that one. So we will finish with the Venthyr. Hello, fellows. We start with Nagia the Mistblade. So Agent of Chaos, Door of Shadows, which is the Venthyr ability, disorients all nearby enemies at the target location for 6 seconds when you appear. It's pretty good. Door of Shadows increases your movement speed by 40%, decaying over 6 seconds, so you port and then you're a little bit faster. So you know, either of those is really, really good. Ooh, it's got a finesse in the middle. I'm not sure I like that. And then you have to take this. It's an interesting design to this one. Right, if the last is a potency there, let's have a look. Yeah. Okay, I think Dauntless Duelist is probably going to be the better option there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this tree is a little problematic because you can't really get what you want. You're going to have to take Scalding Brew there. So, you know, whenever you're faced with at the moment, with a debate between whether or not you're going to take 2 potencies or 2 endurance, endurance is going to lose out slightly because Harm Denial, while it is good, is not as good as those other 3. Yep, Tumbling Technique, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Friends in Low Places, you loot 20% more infused rubies and dredges throughout Revendreth, offering you an expanded selection of goods. Okay. This one I would take Evasive Stride there because you're not going to get a second endurance conduit. Dauntless Duelist, the first enemy you damage in contact is marked as your adversary, however you like to say it. You deal 4% more damage to them and they have 2% less damage to you. So, okay. And then your second potency, which in this one will be Imbued Reflections, because that will amp up Fallen Order, which is your 3-minute DPS cooldown, and it is a DPS cooldown. It's pretty crazy in testing at the moment. It's one of those things that they think is probably going to be nerfed again. Thrill Seeker, while in combat you gain a stack of Thrill Seeker every 2 seconds, or 4 stacks on killing an enemy. At 40 stacks, Thrill Seeker is consumed to grant you Euphoria, increasing your haste by 20% for 10 seconds. Thrill Seeker decays rapidly while you are not in combat. Okay. I don't know, just whacking 20% haste onto while you're in the middle of a fight is going to disorient a few people, so I'm not a massive fan of that one. I think I'll move on to Theotar the Mad Duke. Oh goodness. Okay, yeah, the path is obvious as always. Watch the shoes, cute. Oh, okay, Door of Shadows frees you from roots and snares, so that's a good start. The Leisurely Gate one, 2 charges, but its cooldown is increased by 30 seconds. You wouldn't take it because of the finesse. Well, I wouldn't take it, sorry. So we'll get our Scalding Brew. And the good thing about this guy is you get your 2 potency conduits out of the gate. So, you know, you're at Renown level 5, which is, you know, first week or so. And already, you know, your Fallen Order Monks are doing 20% more damage and healing, and your Keck Smash is dealing an additional 20% damage to targets affected by Breath of Fire. That's a great start. That is a great start. Of these 3 choices, Token of Appreciation, grant a shield to allies who aid you with healing or other beneficial magic effects. Okay. Soothing Shade, your spells and abilities have a chance to call Tubbins and Gubbins to your side for 12 seconds. Parasol in hand. Okay, so standing in that area grants you 350 mastery. Would be nice if we ever stood still, and it's tied to a finesse conduit. Refined Palate. The effects of combat potions last 20% to 100% longer. Are you serious? Well, yes, we'll take that one. We needed to anyway because of the whole need evasive stride thing, and there's your second endurance conduit, so you'll be considerably beefier by Renown 28 with this Soulbind, because you'll have, you know, these 2 coming in, but you can see the difference between the 2. Requires Renown 13, requires Renown 28. Okay, Life of the Party not yet implemented. During the Ember Court, your guests gain additional happiness for each event completed. So you basically get more rewards from the Venthyr party thing. I don't know if you basically throw a party, and the better the party, the bigger the rewards. It's not an idea that excites me greatly. Exquisite Ingredients, you have a chance to obtain an assortment of flavourable herbs and beverages when you kill an enemy that yields experience or honour. I guess the party one, because I'm not an herbalist anyway, but if you are, that's definitely, you can take Exquisite Ingredients instead. Wasteland Propriety. Activating your Venthyr class ability signals the start of tea time. Okay. Granting 10% versatility to you and 4% versatility to 4 nearby allies. Last 10 seconds. Well, that's kind of nice. Versatility is always welcome. Yeah, the main thing I like about this particular Soulbind is, you know, those potencies out the door, and this Refined Palate. That's very strong. Very, very strong. But, you know, we'll see. General Draven is the last one, so we'll start. You have a choice between Unbreakable Body. Your equipment takes 50% less durability damage from death. Well, yes, that would be very useful for a tank. Well, anyone, but particularly a tank. Expedition Leader, leaving an arresting area increases your mounted speed by 10%. They are going with this mounted speed buff thing quite a lot, aren't they? And your out of combat regeneration by 100% lasts 10 minutes. And completing a world quest refreshes the duration. I'm not sure I could bring myself to complete a world quest to refresh the duration though, so yeah, Unbreakable Body probably. So we start with Evasive Stride. That's nice and easy because it's the only one we've got there. Right. Pathway wise, well, this is going to be interesting, isn't it? Build for war. While you're above 80% health, you gain 1% of your primary stat every 3 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. If you fall before 50%, the effect is lost. You lose quite a lot as a tank then. Plus, once again, Finesse Conduit. So in order to plot our way through here, you know, we can have We can either go this way and go endurance, potency, potency, or we can go potency, potency, endurance. So we'll have to have a look at the other abilities and see how they stack up. Superior tactics. Successfully interrupting an enemy or dispelling an ally increases your critical strike chance by 10% for 10 seconds. Okay, well, yes, that's definitely good. Standing still is never a good idea. So yeah, we'd have to go potency again. Okay. The standing still increased stamina. No, I mean, I think probably, you know, having a choice there was kind of nice, but I wouldn't do Imbued Reflections first. I'd do Scalding Brew, and that means that you would have to pick Enduring Gloom. Door of Shadows grants you a shield. It absorbs damage equal to 15% of your maximum health. As a tank, we are higher health than DPS and healers. But also as a Brewmaster, you're one of the lower health tanks, so it'd still be quite useful, you know, if you're trying to get out of trouble or run away. The other option, if we were going to pick it, when a nearby ally gains temporary increased movement speed, you also gain the benefit up to 30% for 8 seconds. So yeah, we'll go with Enduring Gloom. So the second one here would be Imbued Reflections, and then you'd finish with Service and Stone. Damage taken below 40% health is reduced by 10%. Upon death, you leave a stone husk behind which shatters after 3 seconds, inflicting 100% of your maximum health and damage split among nearby enemies, and healing for 100% of your maximum health split among nearby allies. Interesting. And so yeah, that's the whole set of Soulbinds now. So that just gives you an idea of, you know, the various different options you have and how I would currently negotiate through the field. As you can see, I'm trying to avoid finesse Conduits as much as possible, and particularly early on in the expansion, I think, you know, you still will need to focus a little on the more defensive plus versatility kind of passives, just to make sure that you're tanky enough for the early dungeon content. Okay, so there you have it, folks. I hope that gives you an idea of you know, where we're generally going at the moment with the Conduits, and in particular the Soulbinds. I hope it's given you a few ideas as to, you know, which ones you want to pick and where you want to go. Like I've said a couple of times already now, you can go to the Wowhead Soulbind calculator and find out all of these different combinations for yourself. But yeah, that is the length of this presentation today. So like and comment and subscribe and moo, and yes, ta-da! I am the Conspicuous Moo.